Your microphone is on?
So opening prayers.
All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Dungara mebe dewa dhamen dewa chur je Niren chada nida jive danyang la nibar chur je
Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate.
Oi chanze wadan jujen yaba dan jese yeran gujen sorwa ye gewa jungze da ge jeza ba tam je tobe chancho jenbo
Unequaled refuge, ornament of the world, your fame pervades the 3,000 worlds. You are the victor, Vajradhara, without a doubt. I bow at the feet of the Father, Jigten Sumgum. Continually I think of no one but you. Compassionate One, grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I may realize the unelaborated nature of mind.
Jam jen je tom ye zom len je ta be dong song yong lai jo zo de me jia rong do le jian chao guan jie de gong bei xiao lan de 推大的三觉谢来美，千劫老仙多劫见，人个梦把人呢讲，什么的是多把人千劫老。
The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Pratitsa Soha. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the 2 vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings.
Jemedo de Jebonjabo, Serjanumbo, Dawla Jivik, Shachi Jarbe Shavla, Gujan, Jimeo, Toji Jingulada, Madike Jingo, Sedo, Tamji Serwa, Gunjan, Yamin, Dugong, Jangujan. 我们学界应界保障的对众生界根界我你上生就跟我送东这边在原来没小了口腔在看到就叫东根界电脑的给龙木了就我刚收到他的东边就见桥人边 Sembrando tam jinde ye ye namo arya la ye ge dang lo dang no ji ge zhong do dang me ge nam ne ndo wa gun je da ge je zong ba tam je ge de da ge ju den do. Good afternoon. Tin da da gong ga zo je dang da Phowa tela tene Phowa rang ke nyamlen chia je dang tene le le jarwa ji di da ji mupar thong song ba tela nga zo Phowa ja ya ji yung gu yo de tene je dang chi wi na da ji nga zo Phowa ma himba la yang Phowa ja ya se ya di da le lo yo ma de da je dang ro chi wi na nga zo mo ji nga zo Phowa di lo xie ba zam je 히라 팽기요 삼마리 테니다 포와 따통 딩게 포와 코라야 테니 포와 장켄텔라야 고 냠타 똑바 용에 테니제게 지 파기려 포와 잡나다 팽기로 와타 마토 비키야 휴지가 가서 보면지 희송 포와 잡아 고르세나 팽기 히라 가고 인사리 야 대가 나이 그고 테니키 룩소야 테니 히라 요 말에다 좋은 거서 지금부터 희비나 제당 가서 기타 달라메 게 Phowa jagi yore mato we himje nga so Phowa jabale zo kalsena ta molam mandoya de peje keche yosare molam kenan da zo molam mambo yorwa molam yawajen ke molam yore ni chambe ke molam yore tene jonjo ke molam yore jena saije ke molam yore tene oda tende molam mambo je yore tende inada ti nane 다 저 몰람 개체 효대 가르쳐야 요새나 뭐 상보주비 몰람지 jarbo 손에 어다티 배 개체മ്പോ래 되니다 개체മ്പോ를 간데스레스 라위나 테네 달랑가서 총봉 다 상지 그 가울라트네 총본 노르 상보 세야지 총본 노르장 세야지 기트네 다 탐보 상지 그 가울라 상지 기트네 지 창접 스비 라바 섬전에 팬토야 테네 지 기트네 라바다 자침보레 휴네 테네 대휴응비 가울라 다 코레게베 텔레테바다 테네 이 제지 테네 지네 테네 상제 그 송텔라야 저거나 장접 스미기다 라바 세그로 대휴네 테네 테이제레야 잠베양 그 꿈들라 테네 양 코란다 상제 파스 사자 힘바제레 패송베 가울라 테네 잠베양 그 꿈들라 테네 뭐다 nga 장접 스미기 라발라 테네 nga 토나요 nga 장접 스미기 라발라다 라베알란 도바요 테네다 nga 치가 장접 스미기 라바 Thinley Sungro ya Jambe yang la hyung be kabla tene jambe yang ko ta chorang pe me se ya bore sta chona ha sa ya leg so sta reg dang den ba chorang Thinley je kyong ne ji Changchub simbe la ba lamdo yo ba Changchub simbe ke ta jo ba jangdo yo ba oda Thinley je ke chorang be za chen bore Thinley da nga la be tele yang chorang la be da kha sa gore ji theba da tene chorang la yang be da jesu yirangdang tene shoje yu tene tene be gawo chungda janang be yabores tene song yu tene song ni ina yang ta nye Changchub sibe ke laba di ta nye ke yabo la tugu yo ma re tene yin ta chorang tene sacha da sacha ke meng do tene je pa lab chi tene sacha ke meng tene je tang tene da lama meng tene je yo res 어저 저랑 telenya tene 저랑 파긴 도비나 네 Changchub simbe ke laba labtang da Changchub simbe ke joba labsu tene changma 저랑 labgade tene 저랑 tele song bode
So this might be, we said that for Phowa we can practice it for ourselves, and we can we practice it for somebody else. So when somebody else has died, we practice Phowa for them, but this is generally speaking not very easy. So it is not enough to just know how to read the Phowa text in order to benefit them, but one must be also someone who has already manifested signs, and also someone who possesses experience and realization, and they can actually then benefit a deceased person. But then it's difficult for just by knowing this practice and reading the practice to just benefit somebody like that. But so what's more beneficial than to do is to make an aspiration prayer, actually. There are many different prayers. For example, there is the prayer to be born in Dewa Chen. There is the Maitreya prayer. There is the Bodhicharya Vatara prayer, the Chinresic prayer. And of all these prayers, the actually most important prayer, we could say, is the King of Aspiration prayers for excellent conduct. And that is because and the story of this prayer goes back to a merchant called Norsong. And so before he attained enlightenment, so he wanted to learn about the bodhisattva activity to benefit sentient beings, and so he went to see the Buddha of that time to request those instructions, and he said, I have great faith and trust in these instructions, and wanted to receive the instructions on the bodhisattva training. And so at that time, when it was time for that, the Buddha must have gone somewhere else, because then there was Manjushri. And so then he told Manjushri, I'm really interested in training the bodhisattva conduct, and please teach it to me. And then Manjushri said, you are so excellent. That's incredible that you want to learn and that you're so interested in the bodhisattva conduct. I have great faith in you, and I rejoice in that. So he was very happy about that. But he also said that, however, I'm not the one who should give you these instructions. So then he gave him a name and a place of a name and the name of a Lama from whom he should receive these instructions. And so he says, if you would go there, this particular guru will teach you everything about the bodhisattva precepts and the bodhisattva conduct.
오다 틴리 인데 테네 야종 테네 다 노르잔 라베 코랑 베 가네 테네 노르잔 손테네 코란 틴디 치네 사자 틴디 제글라테네 당기게 다 야메양 그 송원나 이테네 사자 심바 제글란도 테네 사자 틴디야 라마데 베츠야 까부 카보 총인 바레 테네 타마디 사자 텔레테네 라마데 라바레 다 라마데 라네 테네 다 뭔가다 장조 심베 라바 장조 심베 조바 틴디 제글 라바 라바 노근도 틴디인데 테네 다가 Changchub Simbeke Laba Tindije Tene, Ta Labrochi Stine, Ya, Kong Humbe Galatene, Konga, O, Ta Tangyanja, the Yambe Yang Songwana Yeta, Choran, some Yemeshabre, Changchub Simbeke Laba, Lamdo Yowa, Yando Yowa, Changchub Simbeke Ta, Joba, Lamdo Yowa, the best. Some Yemeshabre stand the Techoran Labing, Jesse Yiran, Tindita, onboarded. 진짜 삼진 미쳐버다 나 빼면서 가고 중 저랑 되게 장쳤으면 라발라바 되게 항상 가고 중 이나 양다 네 장쳤으면 라바데다 되게 라비아 되게 랍토고요 말에 되게 인도 양 저랑 사자 다 대상도 사자 늘리지라 되게 라만 늘리지긴 센 늘리지라 되게 쇼요래 어다 저랑 텔레폰 진짜 저런데 장적 심베게 되네 다 라바트 휴네 되네 공칸난 그레스 텐디 슈버레 다 텐디 슈베 깔라 양 코람베 라마데 제제제제 사샤카와 다 단단하게 있고 딱 숨어서 GPS 나기 땡겨요 말와 다조 가르네 장적 심베 딱 뭐네시네 장적 심베 라바 랍데요와 얘네야 딱 가서 직탱크 나오거든 와다 라마틱 틱그레 잠반도 마도 딱 가서 뭐네시 코랑 그 장적 심베 라바 깔레자고요와 라마데 제야라다 베칼레 모모티 티네 라마 마라와베 까게 모모티네 타마데야 라마데 라바레 와타 라마데 라와나야 당기티 찍바지 송바레 와타 딘데 제제티네 다 라마 자다 쭈 템바레 찍바지 라마 자다 쭈다 타마텔라 다 단다 군도 성보인 바레 다 타마다 건도 성보 당원에 장접 심비 라바 라면서 코나 든디지 그 라마 자다 쭉 땡야라 든디 깔레지야 소소 저바장 든디지다 다 장접 심보 모든 요로 노르장 코나 장접 심보 모든 요로 텔레데네 타마다 다 건도 성보 장접 심비 몰람 시야다 몰람 데다 송버레다 제북 원에디 이제 미니다 랍잔데니 랍잔마디네 장접 심비다 든디지 중효 스몬 발라다 손에다디 종 투비아케 누바 베네치 타 노르잔 코란게 베다 까와 빠데메바 삼진 메자와 텐디 라마자데지 템바 텔레데네 테네 다 티게 톱케 손에 다 티타 라망가힐라 코란페 마라네 테네 로쭈니 텐데라 테네 라마테네 제레 송도와 오다 테네타 라망가 힌다와 지 라망가 힌다와 토 라망가 로직 다 텐데 테네 라만다마다 테네 텐지 테네 다 라마 타마데다 지 제르티 다 송샤와 로와 제부 모든 요와 다자 요와 테네 단다디 상보주베 모나나 칸디 신중구 쇼 세야다 지 마옹발랑한데 효 세야지 랑게 통, 현게 통, 그다 뭐람배 타르침바 만두바 메와 오다 들리지 되네 다 수면데 건도 상봉인 말에 대인도 땅원에 단에 가서 지 상보주베 그 뭐람 살지 동비나야 되게 평용 삼지 메차바래 다 계시면로지 총송미나 디 총송미 치들라 상보주베 그 뭐람 살지 동비나 땅원에 그 되게 지 평용로지는 가서 다 지금 치나오지 지메 토바라와 오다 틀리제기 요리 틀리니 당가서 제타 제가 랑케 통이나리 제가 나기다 믹스게 된 현게 통 지금 심전다 수이나리다 먼저 오더니 총요나 되네 디가블라다네 가서 상보주비 몰람동야 오다 제가 나이게야 지금 심전한테 해요나다 등장가서 천라우, 세라우, 다 간디 희귀요나다 등원에 다네 직 상보주베 그 몰람 동비나 삼진 미차비케 누파체부 삼진 미차비케 톱체부 줌센 카레세나 되네 직 추자 노르장게 되네 지 까와 빠다메 바지네 디게 지 라마 자당 주게 되네 전화부터 누가당 그래 노상게 제 원에 전에 기타 딘디 창접 선배 라바 딘디지 루당 되네 소라 도지리 되네 까와 빠다메 디 줌세 알라 때네 디게 누바 디게 또 되네 맞아다 지 원에 상주 사익동미나야 고 가세거다 폐용 맞췄지 제메타 같은데 이제 차디오레스
And so then Norzang then went according to Manjushri's instructions and tried to find this guru. And at first it was very difficult to find him, but he finally found him. And then he told that guru, I was told to see you to teach me the precepts and the training of the bodhisattvas. So please teach me. Manjushri sent me. And then this guru said, oh, Manjushri sent you. That is so incredible, and that you want to learn about the bodhisattva conduct. That is really amazing, and I really rejoice in that. That is so rare. However, I'm not the one to teach you that. So then again, he gave him the name of a certain place and a different guru's name. He said, you should go there, and this guru is going to teach you. So then, just like before, he went to find this next guru, and of course he had to go on foot. It's not like in the present day, and so he had to do a lot of hardships to find this next guru. And then this next guru told him exactly the same thing, and so that went on and on and on for 110 times. So he found 110 different gurus, and every time he was sent to a different guru. And in the end, he was sent to the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And while he was trying to find these 110 gurus, he accumulated great merit and purified obscurations. And actually, during this time, by doing that, he actually transformed himself already into a bodhisattva by doing that. So then when he met with this Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra didn't actually give him the instructions either on what exactly to do and what do the bodhisattvas do and so on. There were no instructions, but the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra made an aspiration prayer. So may this happen, or may this kind of bodhisattva activity arise, and through the power of this aspiration and so on. And so he rejoiced in Norzang's great aspiration, and then made this aspiration prayer. And so because of the hardships that Norzang endured finding these 110 gurus, through the power of this merit that he accumulated by enduring this hardship, now the prayer that was then composed in the end by the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, the aspiration prayer for excellent conduct, becomes extremely powerful. Because this was a time where Norzang had already transformed himself into a bodhisattva. And it is actually an inconceivable prayer, is prayer for excellent conduct. So when a person has died, or not just a person, anyone really has died, like a dog or a cat, for example, whoever dies, if you read that to them just one time, the benefit of the recitation of this prayer is really immeasurable. It cannot be measured. Whoever comes into contact with it, yourself or another person when they die, or another animal, the power is really immense. And the power is so great because of the hardship that this Bodhisattva Norzang had endured. And the blessings are so powerful. And so for this reason, if you just recite this prayer one single time, the benefits are really inconceivable.
어떻게 다 단다디 가서 군도 성보대 대체 지나티 인사말에 사면다 바라 가르스나 군도 성보대다 된 예외 세천지 창조 선반 예외 세천지 여러 원자명 청나도 제 제네 사이닝보 두번 넘버 시 남긴닝보 첨바 군도 성스 티 군도 성보대 인사와 다 고제지나 related 다 유저와 이나 단다디 단다 군도 성보대 다 단다 성보주비 몰람제보 숙련디 되네 창조 선바 되네 군도 성보 파워티 기송레스 텐디다 대가 나이에 가서 다 남부 대책이와 갈세나 다 인데 솔라 치기요래 가서 다 매직 통소나 몰람 자로 치서 다 몰람 자로 주데 갈세나 다 단다데 상부주비 몰람 자로 몰라 소비다 몰람 당기 공티와 저러와 되네 레다 가서 지 매직 통소요나 어다 메탈 통소 몰람 자로 치서 다 라마라 휴기요래 가서 상가 멤버의 휴기요래 다 대휴네 되네 동바달라 평요요래 썸미샤바리 니네 양다 做切小的但我呢让人说说谈谈东古多谈谈马西我啦我做谈安保长嘛长的为搞了我呢上不就被个莫啷听的就东呢一人家的为呢听到我呢西边呢搞了他让给伢们都要了哇我莫啷都让给伢们都要了他没心把这个东国嘛的其实没心把这个东边的他我呢可能想我是就要了这他常常样我做10회 내 갑라 다 지금 상상 진도야로 다 되니 용거로 인다 뒤에 갑라 되네 라만로 상가 멤버로 이제 되니 뭐라지 동배이나 근데 뭐네 뭐든 좋다고요다 그러면 차고요로 리마인드 어때마도 베기다 야지 당봉 가서 강사 코란게 주라 되네 이제 화차당 되네 코란게 지 금지당 코란게 지다지 코와당 통화 토바당 저소시라 미위나 다지 파죠메 제기 동민다 제탄다 배용 요리 이나양고 내일 키와지 당고지 파게게 코르발이가 토토비 니바지 이제 통토비 가버리 되는 코르발이야 타토비 니바 통고고요나 다 단단가 좀 마시비 그거라 지 안보고 차당 상대에 갑라 그냥 가서 성보주비 그 뭐랑도 금리치 지 동민이나 되는 거네 섬지 미샤바리 다 강사지 야탄바 동발이 랑 사지 동나 되는 배용 체요래 드레인데 도야 캐치몰이 샤스다
And so this Samantabhadra here is not to be confused with that Samantabhadra Buddha that we are familiar with. And so this one here is the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, one of the close sons of the Buddha. So there was Bodhisattva, Vajrapani, and earth essence, sky essence, and there was also Samantabhadra. And they might be related because they have a similar name, but here it's the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra who spoke the aspiration prayer for excellent conduct, king of aspiration prayers. And so when a person dies, then that is a prayer to recite. So often when somebody dies, then people ask a guru or a sangha member to read prayers for them, to pray for them. And this prayer in particular is of incredible benefit, of the greatest benefit. But what's even more beneficial than somebody else reciting it for someone else is reciting it oneself. While one is still alive, while one still has all one's sense faculties, it is good to familiarize oneself with that prayer right now, to really have that in your mind, integrate that into your mind. So then later when you die, then you don't actually really need anyone reading that prayer to you, because the prayer is already with you, together with you. And of course, it could happen that when you die, when somebody dies, that they forget about things like that, like the prayer. And then it's very beneficial for someone else to recite a prayer for them, kind of like as a reminder. And so that can also be very beneficial when like a guru or a sangha member recites that prayer then as a reminder. And so especially if it's somebody who doesn't have a strong imprint or familiarization or understanding, I haven't really seen or heard about it much before, then if somebody else recites it for them, it's of course beneficial, but it will be difficult for that alone to be enough to liberate that person from samsara. So in order to really generate the power that liberates them from samsara, it's important that they themselves recite that prayer. And right now, while they still possess their sense faculties and are alive. And so if you recite this prayer, the benefit is really inconceivable. It's of a much greater benefit to recite it one time yourself than have 100 recitations done for you by someone else. So the actual personal recitation of this prayer is very important.
Pandemic te tambungo zo be kabla te nga zo da chocho na ma tini yunya ayo marwa ina ti kabla ta nga zo online ga la te nge tanda sambo ju be ke molam ti sman dewa do ji tin do ji te shubi yin stin da chata nga ran do sam no ta bi na ta sangchu molam te lo sem de yore char mon bon dong go ti na ya da ji sam no hira stang yo marwa thonda kharimba inada thigawla thonda ro ji ya samno dang dong samji mechabare sha tendu tene jeje tene da di nga to tidu sarje tidu ta nongu yore nyamde tene ta tamade nga to dan dewa de chachang ma hyusin de hyusin za de nga to dan go ro ji zo ji tene tanda da chozo lo ma da choje ke da nima ta hare chare nongu da online ga la chare 다 담보 공무망보 어디요래 대티 갑래양 어머디 신용을 침발에 다 단다 다 공소야 뭐 마르로 다 공소 다 거기지 로솜 스톤요로 와 니마 제일 치요 말에 다 조섬 좀 해셔로 와 대장 맞이베 다 단다 공소 앞에 가와당 가나 쪼나 쉬어도 다 거기 터나로도 빼 하고도 스타 빼 주슈스도 스타디 다디 고팽용 간대요 다저 어때 다 동동동동동 되네 다 하고도 어디니 송도 텐디다가 강다리야 랑크 치티나라에 샹크 치티나레 텐디 되네 직 상보주베 그만람 저서 빼면서 자침보데 되네 다 딜리두두 되네나 직 무시송이나레 던로시송이나레 텐디 가라다 오마니 베몽스타 제렌사이데 tene ta ningje ka rangzo yinbare tendu ta ningje se ya ti ki nu pe to ge tene senje hyana phan to gu yo wa tene indu man banza man te ya ponya ke chen bo des tendu ina ta zo ka sana tene ya ji ta phowa la nyam to wa tene da ji familiar da phowe ke rang ta thong de jo tene chong ne tene senje shenba la ya 지게 소말라양 포와자가 텐데 이나다 단다땡가 저 갑사바 가상 마 휴거래 텐데다 조카스나 강사한테 마 셔차베 휴라 테네 다 저랑시 총차바레스 히심바레 테네 다 지 단디 침다 몸에 기직 저랑 루보도 짱다 지맹알람데 다 저랑 말 통차바레 스테니다 단다 저랑 파도크 나라 요레스 지네데 다 파도크 갑라다 단다 제당 딩고도 다 가시 모두 예바 요레 가시 모두 두두 요레 다 칸다리야 다 가장가서 롭좀 휴로와 텐디다 칸다리야 테네 다 모두도 휴지네데 오다 텐디제 해송 저랑 해데 요레 다 안되는데 요레 그거 스솔라야 저랑 지 가장 공휴요레 테네 지 나와 kallam sharwe kabla ta nawa chibala themba ta tene number heba nawa la thembe ta imba ta tene nawa malam jungwa la tene chiba nawa number heba nawa chiba na chiba nyetop la themba ta oda la sobe tozorde ma to be da choranti je be da ta wo ta sel la sobe to hena chigma e senetene nguru tungdungji che 대응으로 동동 지자비 휴라야 되네다 단단되네 뭐 가장 오마 소보와 휴다 서버들 뭐 소보와 휴다 지디다 너지 파모케 가장 제렘테 직바리라고 거면 제렘 직바리 이내야다 디갑라 같이 거래 슬라비나 되네 맞죠 그 엄대 같으니 많이 봤더니 저랑라다 메틀 팔라 나오다 저랑 통차바레 Tende ta tanda chorang pardo tende ri tende jo pardo ke yilu ti ta cho pardo ke na la ta chorang nere je gom as ta chorang tende je dorje phomo cha dan hie dan tende yore tende ti na yi ta za oma yore za ome na ne tende ta meji la phage cha la ba ro wa te ti na la ta ka za oma chi tende ome ke na la tende tseni xetang denpa chi ti gang la tene ta nika tseg si chi ba chi nika tseg si chi gang la pema xe yo wa chi o pema xe gang la ta chorang xebe nambar xebe ngo tete tili tende ji yo re sen tene ta paar ngo tu do ji cha re do wa.
For example, also when the pandemic started 3 years ago, we were also not able to assemble in a Dharma center like we do now. And at that time, actually, I gave an online teaching on this King of Aspiration prayers for excellent conduct. And so generally, I have memorized this prayer, but often when we recite a prayer repeatedly, you don't really always think about the meaning, which is recited fast. And so at that time, when giving these instructions, I really thought about the inconceivable meaning of this prayer. And after having given these instructions, we established tradition at the Dharma Center for a disciple to recite this prayer online every day without skipping a single day. And in the beginning, there were quite a good number of people, and then there were less people, but now there's more people again. And so since 3 years, we have recited this prayer every day without skipping a day. And people really like this prayer, and it really has a very great and profound meaning. It's really very beneficial to understand the meaning. And so whether it's for ourselves or it's for somebody else, this King of Aspiration prayer for excellent conduct is extremely important. And also when somebody else has died, a person or an animal, we can recite the Om Mani Padme Hum, the Mani mantra for them, because Chinrizik is an embodiment of compassion. And through the power of compassion, we can truly benefit sentient beings. So therefore, the recitation of the Mani mantra is also important. And so now, coming back to the Phowa instructions. So when you have yesterday mentioned on how to benefit to somebody else who has passed away, and maybe someone who is not familiar with the practice, and so then and we introduce them. So somebody goes to the person who has already passed away and then tells them, so you have died, now you're going into the bardo. There's different ways of introducing them. There are some longer and some shorter versions of it. And we mentioned it roughly yesterday already, but basically you give that person an introduction to what is happening, that they have died and that there are certain signs that are arising. For example, when the whiteness appears and consciousness appears into appearance, and then appearance dissolves into increase and redness appears and so forth. So we go through the various signs that we mentioned yesterday, and also we tell them that there will be various sounds and light rays and so on that will appear. And there's no need to be afraid when they arise. And so we introduce them like talkingly to a person. And so now then we introduce them to the visualization too. So as it begins in a sadhana, it begins with the Om Sva Baba mantra, and then there is the visualization of Vajra Yogini. And so just at this point, it's not us visualizing ourselves as Vajra Yogini, but we are telling that deceased person to visualize themselves as Vajra Yogini. So we're giving like a teaching. So now they have a mental bardo body, and we tell them now visualize this. Visualize Vajra Yogini, and then visualize the central channel, and the central channel possesses these 4 characteristics. And at the heart level, and there is this 4-petaled, on this ledge, there is a 4-petaled lotus flower on top of which is your own consciousness in the form of a bindle sphere and so forth. So we give them an introduction to the visualization.
어다 티인데 다 틴디지네 다 가상 콘티기랑 곰바티가 나이리 이나다 메심바젤 틴디 곰라네 틴디다 텔레 로바치비가라 가상 가서 jam비가블라 틴디 가서 핵 지기요와 다 티인데 가서 jam비가블라 다 대바시다 요사마레 틴디 가서 단다데다 주비케테네 Jundeb tene rangala che tong tene telayang chi he kata katanga chondo nyamla chi ka la he dun tene jab yorwa tingma dun that teriti terwa 7 set dawa korwa tene ta chitan kono tingma dun chi telayang Tinala Timajekina ya tsar dun tini nongu yoro tini chi yore ina teyang tini cheba yo samare yamena tsar bena that 7 set or yana 40 ro yana 21 set tini china degi yo sares nga so jambe ne kabla tini da jetang katsang noya ti ko karse rotating karse nga so tambulong ti Jundeb Jeparian Dong Hegya, Tene Duparian Dong Hegya, Tene Jeparian Dong, Tene Hegya, Tene Chigiorwa, Tene Tene, Tegana Yeketa, Pete Tunjekina, and Dawina, Tene, and the visualization, Timajek can do your service. Tene Inayanda, Tandanga to the most tone of a kala, Tene Hexoma to Jayomaris, Hegtelang, Heglaman, Heglaver, Hey, stati meko paldi gogurwa, meko ta meti korwa chigurwa, tini indi tela jitanga mambu jagwa tini gasamares.
And so, as we said, we can practice the Phowa ourselves, or we can practice it for helping somebody else. And so when we were training in Phowa ourselves, when we did the practice together, we came to this part where we did the heck, where we moved the consciousness that way. So, for example, the way we did it was we read the long lineage supplication first, and then we did 7 hecks. And so what we can do, there's different ways of doing that. One can do 7 sets of that. One can also do 40 sets of that, or one can do 21 sets of that. When one is training and practicing the sadhana. And one can also rotate it around. So one can do 1 lineage supplication, the long lineage supplication, and then do the hex, and then do the short supplication, do the hex, and then go back to the long one, do the hex, and so on. But in one session, it's enough to just read the visualization 1 time. And now when we practice it for somebody else who has passed away, we first of all, we are saying pet in that case, pet. And we are not doing that many times. So we are saying 3 pet for somebody else while focusing our awareness on the other person. So we're not doing it that many times when doing it for somebody else.
Oda tinita tanda dita ngaso lela jarwa seateri tinita rande da katang zo ngaso di jig randa wina da tagas jig oda nga be hesong yaksare zambanda woda tindi chi ji tine Phowa jamna digiyo mari tine tagas jig da disna ne oda nga nagido hido zana Phowa jamna digiyo mari tine tinita ti jig ko kesi Phowa tine jagiyo wina tine chiwe ke ta Koran chatang jaja bakoda hindogu yowa aji lukete functioning tindi mewa oda tindi je ke tone tini ta Phowa jagu yore stini temoto sosun sam javina pengya pachimbo ranka rangla sibi ke tini dekwa tindi yungu yore
And so also we mentioned that before yesterday when we applied the Phowa for ourselves. For example, if I feel that I better die, in that case it's not okay to practice Phowa. Or if you feel that I'm a little bit sick, I may just die and then practice Phowa. That's also not okay. So if we practice Phowa, then all the signs of death have to be complete, and it has to be 100% sure that you're going to die. So basically the body is no longer functioning. And if you perform Phowa before these signs have occurred, you actually incur the negativity of the killing yourself.
Okay. So I think that's I think the Phowa around Latin Phowa Jangwa da Hyana Phowa Lela Jarwa Stapeje and Dundo Shubina Tini Saris and then Tiki Tola Chikiranzo Yang Tawando Yovina going to take this.
So this completes the instructions on practicing Phowa, training oneself, and also helping others, applying it to others. And so if you have any questions about that, please ask them.
Mm-hmm.
So when doing it for others, once again, I understand that you want to be a High Lama or have the signs. But I just want to know, when we recite the peg for others 3 times, do we also have to see their central channel, or we're just telling them, hey, see your central channel and I'll recite the heat for you, but you see the channel? Or do we also, as the helper, have to see their central channel and their consciousness going out?
Basically telling them, so because first we said, oh, you died, so now you see you in the pardo, or you visualize this and that, so but also this can't help them too, so support for them.
There was a question about the ga. They said it's not so easy to do it. They want to exhale instead of inhale. Can you give some description or advice again about the hics and the ga and the breathing? Thank you.
Right, yes, ka is not easy. In the Dakota, ka the catch Mushira Maris, so Karsina Azota long chill tongro, tangi de ko hex long chill de exhale chiviore, tene, the kati kita, tangi conchuana, long make some chana, long make some chill and aware, no yorwa, tea induta, tea kati ke, bring long not make. But Samson with a capital corama heart send on the Yak Chitola, Yam to the old go yar. Inhaling chia, that is the Kechamuchadi or see Tigananga to that, and you don't know Ka Seate, or this Kala de Tachanga to the you get a lobby gabla, Kadu Yimbi in a young, Jig Dachilla Tombi gabla, this oak go exhale no chano grua in a ka la the exhale no chago in a yada ka thi nyam to la inhale chidi start da se o yo madina yada ko da se o mina da peje ke samares da thi zo karsena o nang o yatal da this zo chi ko yo sare sam gdos.
And so the ka is also not what's most important actually. What's most important is to focus on the wind's energies. So mainly when we are performing the heck and the wind actually does go out, there's a slight exhalation that occurs with the heck. And then yes, when we say the ka, then we are actually we have to inhale because we're bringing it in. And so we are bringing it back down to the heart center directly. And so that's why they said we are inhaling there, but also naturally by saying a sound, it seems that naturally we actually, instead of inhaling, we actually exhaling because that's how sound is produced. So this is okay when that happens. If it's not completely a clear inhalation only, that's okay. But we should still try to inhale when we are saying the ga.
I was wondering about the text transferring the consciousness when there was the yogis practicing this a long time ago. What else were they doing besides going to Dewachin? If this was just one example in the text, why did they need that?
다 데려와. 원이 지나다 아직 레다 냠렌 칭겐 tsuzonrawe ta nyamlen mangbo yore mangcheje chaje chembongone chondro yo sare tega na yike ta katang je tomo de tong tinga le ne chorgu yo sare tega na yike ta je malam pardo wase teni na le chorgu yo sare teni ta ti na ne phowa de ko yilang jek cha de yorwa yinaya da zo Phowa di Mississippi da Phowa di karsena aji da karse gore jik nama juma se gore da nyamlen cheta chi matom ke tini chule yang tindi familiar menken ji wada tindi je kita ko ma la ma megne tini지 차디요 서리스 양고 학파도 기타도 포와데 대 가장 쉬운 거 포와라 되니 주구 포와 요래 다 망치지 냠내 진게 참말라 주구 포웨가 토로 위해서와 이나야다 단다디 가좀 롱구 뭐말 뚜르구 포와디 다저 체효디 포와디 다지 갈세다 레 탐보바 세너리 직다 메주마라 테니 맥바테니 제 차디요 사리스 particular tega no yinga so phon jazo se yade
And so there are many different practices, and most who do become liberated through the state of Mahamudra. But we also mentioned that some become liberated through the bliss and emptiness of Tummo, and some become liberated within the practicing with the dreams, or in the bardo, or practicing luminosity, pure light. And then of these, Phowa is just one branch. And so Phowa is meant particularly for those individuals who are more ordinary and who do not really practice otherwise, who are not so familiar with the Dharma. And also, as you mentioned yesterday, of course, there's different kinds of Phowa. There is for example, the Dharmakaya Phowa. And so those practitioners, real practitioners, will probably become liberated through the Dharmakaya Phowa. But this Phowa here is the Nirmanakaya Phowa, the wild grass stalk Phowa, and that is mainly meant for beginning practitioners or more ordinary individuals.
A question about the dissolution, in particular the second line, first part where it says, right after the Amitabha descends down and transforms into Amitayus, it says, light radiates out and returns, gathering life essence of all samsara and nirvana. Quick question, just where is the light emanating from? Is it our hearts? And then just if Rinpoche can give a little explanation of that line, light radiates out and returns, gathering the life essence of all samsara and nirvana.
So where is the text? Da jitang di da diladis mandayo sare zamgdo ina yang kanda yang da namjun do ina nga te cha de yorwa tanda nga jiwo de tanda wa me gom de yore tene wa me gom de du tene wa me de ngo ne jo ne tene chapa me namba da jitang nga di phowa de jangya de zo karsna phowa jangya de thonda de da jik dewa ji jogo yang ro yang ro ji irwa Tindri di ina yang da ko yang nga so tindri tanda dewa jian da not ya trwa this ma jiten inal di tambe chu nyamlen chi jidin jobo yang roya tini mayin ba tindu jobo roya mayin be chi dola da kargo gorsna nga serung bu go wala cherob de chapa mi ba re tindri indu jetang da namju nga so tindri je chegi yore tini tanda wapha mi tini 네 세바 어화미데 세바미 네인조 디가르데 나도 세종 다 사기 여러와 테니지레스 이나단 다 테니오 티도와 테니 라마디 라마 지오네 마르촌 닝우스 지데 라마 어화미데 테니 마템 데템바 테가라데 인칼라치 인칼레바 테가라나 테니 세바미 강오원도 조 Tindi tsepa me pe ngowon jo ne tine ta tere tine tsepa me ngowon jo ne ta tsepa me nela ngowon jo so me kala nga so waze chon de la gro tine nga so o maren zeven dai nga tungwa de khorchi nga tungwa ko na waze chilen tu tine chilen tu ne da nga so jitan waze thotang mangbo yo re tine pa chilen tu ne tine ji sanje dang changjo samba da tam ji lan choba pu Ten choba pu ne tene wazer tsor duwe kala tene chik sanje lama yadam sanje changsan pawo kando ta tazo ke tene tse ki ju tse top o ta tene je ke tene chik nufa to tsama yang rang la tene nying kala tem song zamba ta tene labgu yo sare es tene tene chungma tang tene pega na ye ke chik tene tse ki ju tsor duwe kala tene chik chewa mewa 제다 어디다 가서 스템 로지 줄와메와 첸 줄와메와 체 템보 용어 팀이 총송어서마다 단다 배천디나나 텐데 제도와 이나야다 고 아타이 콘슈유레 두든 보치비나 텐데 제바메게 워화메데 텐데 제바메죠 텐데 가서 막도 있어 텐데 데디케이션 지아레스
And so that is a little bit different. And so normally we visualize the Buddha Amitabha on our crown, and then Buddha Amitabha transforms into Buddha Amitayos. And so mainly that is in order to we practice Phowa in order to quickly be able to go to the Pure Land of the Chen. But then we don't want to go just yet. We want to stay a little in this life, so to practice the Dharma. So in order to not go too quickly, what we need is a long life. And for that, we need the Buddha Amitayos. So that's why Amitabha transforms into Amitayos. And then we recite the Amitayos longevity mantra. And so here in this particular sadhana that we have here, and so the guru, who is Amitabha, dissolves through your crown and goes down to your heart, and then there he transforms into Amitayos, and then light rays radiate, and we recite the mantra Amara Nityavandaya Soha Amitayos mantra. And so then you have this seed syllable and mantra garland of Amitayos at your heart. And then from that, light rays radiates, and the light makes offerings to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And then when the light gathers back, it brings back all the vital essences and powers of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the gurus, the yidams, dakas, dakinis. And it all dissolves into your heart again. And so then once all of these vital essences have dissolved into you, it is like you're kind of sealing, putting a stamp on immortality. And so then your life becomes firm and unchanging. And so this is how it is in the sadhana that you just showed. And otherwise, we just think that Amitabha transforms into Amitayus, then we recite some Amitayus mantra, and in the end, we dedicate.
So you've mentioned several times about first we see the white and then the red and then the blackness. So there's also the opportunity to liberate at these times. What are we supposed to be thinking? Like, oh, my mind is, oh, this is the nature of my mind. When it appears as white, if we recognize that this is the nature of our mind, or
that the end the re that he got like his move to win a pay up borwa carsana Chitanda to Sama naturally Yungure got any contuana yere Jig Nawa Chiba Nyeto number Hiba Nawa Chiba Nyeto Temba Labna degree Yaman the Karsanga Jig Pai Tigle Marion Mai Tigle Pai Tigle Marion Becabla Tene Nawa Kalam Shariata, Mai Tile Yayung, now Mana Shariata, Tin number Hibi, Tile Karmani Bohala, number Hiba Duve, Nagalam Seata, Rangi Yungu, Motuna, a Yabore, Hinayata, so Che Shorty, that and the Gonshuana Yiri, Tanga to Nagalam Kiela. That was a charm, Tambo de Koji Pamani body, Kotati Kijik number Hiba, Tombana Ye, the Chine. Tike ko tin ta tele ta khati lut chub garwa tango lut chobe kabla thinde de ta phai ke ta kharsa khwa da mai khwa nin de thi na ne number heba hyudu tine lut cha no garwa ene ta ta ma hyudu la ya ta thangbo khang chungwa na yege tine ji phamani bu ke khota ta number heba nyam tin ro jin som then zombie kabla tene da lu heng do growa tene je phamani khota da heng do ta mewa cha do growa te mewa cha we kabla ko number hiwa changma ro je te thong go yore te number hiwa changma thongwa tela ta ti je la ose se ya ta tenga zo ta record demya tere ta jetanga zo tenda se ben nga zo ta naru chudo kana la tene ose gomje ta seri se thagum go ta ti kabla ngon thaya ina ti ngode ta morang la barna giri nawa kalam da malam da nalam da tri ramba hin ngoto na ta le yakshorwa ta le je de ta nga de ji phaye ke tene nawa kalam sharbe kabla ta ko phaye ke tile de nga nawa kalam shak dozan ta ngone ready hipche ayorwa be ko be hansa ya bores tin ngoto bina tene ti hyule ta ko wase ngoto ya la jada ma chogruwa kesi gole nawa kalam malam nalam to ngoto bina yinaya ta zo karsi nungu chose tewa di kare lawena ta tanda nagalam ki jie ki wase songa ta wase te yang te songdwa kala gore tine jikta si wase te la te songre ta se de kenza ji yosare se de ko ji Nime ki zenda wo mayimba, dawe ki zenda wo mayimba, yang se yo wa muna mayimba. Oda tindi jik pe karsa goda jik se ke jik thama ta nima rawo ina yang ko jik straight chirwa pe na lo ta nima ina ko phagi ko wu rawo jik jaong gorwa wu rawo jik phagi se je or se ti nga so je la nga so pong gorwa. Tindi insa re mendo wa ko se jik ko ta ranghi jik sewa jik pe da sem ki sewa ta pe tindi jik. Shimba je ki yu je ki ngopo je ki tenne tenne se je yaunga tenne mayinba tenne peche na songyo ti som tang chewa songre nima tang dawe ki se tenne mayinba mamba yang mayinba ta nga wani chine nga su tanda jiksen sama tang na dawa nima yang me dawa yang me na tenne mamba chang no growa te yang ti som che dewa hegla tenne wase se ya taris ta ti wase te karse na ko sem je ka rangi sewa je 차대 그거서와 tindu jen shen je do wa tende mayin ba ta ni mai na nga je ni me se ni mal do gore da ve zen da ga do gore lo se lo do ne tene se je chang gore wa tende mayin ba tene ta sung wa
But if you recognize those, then that is the best. And so these stages of whiteness and redness and blackness, they occur naturally. So it is a natural appearance of when a consciousness dissolves into appearance and appearance into increase and increase into attainment. So you can recognize that now this whiteness is due to my father's energy essence or bindo descending down, and this redness is the vision of my mother's bindo moving up, and this blackness is a vision of the two drops meeting. So you can, if you recognize that, of course, that's the best. But the most important part of recognition actually happens right after the blackness. And so after blackness, the luminosity of the mind becomes apparent. And so that is when the parents' white and red drops have dissolved into emptiness. And so it's actually quite similar to how the body first is created. When the body first is created, there's also a mixing of the father's white drop and the mother's red drop. And after they have mixed, the consciousness enters that, and we have created the body. And then when we die, it is similar in the sense that, again, the white and the red drops are meeting, but this time they cause this meeting causes dissolution and the destruction of the body. And then through their mingling, then the white and the red drops dissolve into emptiness, and then they're absent. Then there is no more physical drop, and then there's just the consciousness. And then we can clearly see consciousness, the luminosity of our own mind. And that is one practice of the 6 yogas of Naropa, the practice of luminosity, and to recognize that at this point. So, of course, if you are recognizing the whiteness, the redness, and the blackness, and that is, of course, the best. But you can also, so you can recognize this is the white drop, this is the red drop, and so on. So that is, of course, incredible. But so if you do that, if you recognize that, then with 100% certainty, you will also recognize the luminosity after the blackness. But the real hardcore of the practice now is right after the blackness, when luminosity appears. And actually, it is that this luminosity is actually not like a sun rays. It is not like moonlight, and it is not like darkness either. And that is because it is not like sunlight or like moonlight, because a sunlight or kind of some kind of light ray is a ray that extends from somewhere onto something. So it's not like that. It's not like there is one thing shining upon another thing. There's just a natural luminosity there, and that does not depend on any other object. And that is why in the text it says it is neither sunlight nor moonlight nor darkness. It is beyond the world. So in this world, of course, when there is no sunlight and there's no moonlight, it is dark outside. But this luminosity is beyond sunlight, moonlight, and darkness. It is like a natural clarity of the mind that does not rely on any external condition. In the world, when sunlight or the daylight relies on the sun, the moonlight relies on the moon, or kind of an electric light relies on that light bulb. But the natural state of the mind does not have not that kind of a light source.
And do those three correspond with the three kayas, or it's all about recognizing after they've subsided and then the luminosity arises?
어디 뒤하고 트리카야 요사 말에 이나 다 단다디 고조응어도 디 rangi ke ta ko rangi ke tsamman roji tangi kong thiwa rang ye nga tsu nyom be ke tokwa locha hedang ke tokwa nga ro ya dang te rangi re te ga na yi ke ko ta zo tanda di nawa galam alam nagalam seya de ta kojik luk kojik rangi ke luk pa heng ro ya ko tsurwa dang tene ji lui dang sem ke ten ro ya ke ta thi ka be ko ta ji kana ta dissolution ro je ke ne chu cha de yo sa res tene ta tangi kong thua na yiri thambong ga chu lui thi yar hame ko ta la number he ba zom lan du ni yar nyam da chi ta thi la ta ko ji yin ta thama last la karsna kon sama separation kora chago ro wa tene ta te ko ji rangi ke dissolution ro je ke chago rangi ke dissolution tele dene ko thik experience ro je chadiyo sa res.
And so the experience is not necessarily one of the three kayas, but it is just a natural process where you come to the completely pure state of your mind. When gradually all afflicted concepts of attachment and hatred and so forth have ceased, when they cease, that happens naturally. And then the appearances of whiteness, redness, and blackness happens naturally. And as the body disintegrates, these experience that we described occurs naturally. So it is a natural dissolution. As you mentioned before, there is a way for the body to become established when the parents' red and white drops mix and then a consciousness enters. And in the end, it has to separate again. And there is a dissolution process. So these experiences are all natural experiences.
And then when you talk about the meeting of the mother and child, we're also realizing then that this luminosity, there's no separateness. Is that great luminosity is the same as our consciousness?
Oda ti gana nga zo da sem ko ngo chu sung da tanda de nga zo de sem ji rang yi wu se wa sung do wa tin de da ta sem ji rang yi wu se wa zo da de ngo chu ba ri da tanda yang nga zo tande ne ka la nga zo sem ji rang yi wu se wa tin ji yo re ti na yang da ko ji nya hai ji realization tin yo na sem ji rang yi wu se wa da thong tho gu wa tomato nga zo thong tho gu ma re tomato ya de ka na nga zo driba yo re driba de ka zang hyu yin ba sibi ke driba malam ke driba nito ke driba som ke deb ne ka du yin nga zo ya ni sibi ka bina driba ni ko bi ka bla ine driba tene chik ta ka se ni deep sleep ga ne driba yo de ka du yin nga zo ta chik sem je rang yo se wa da thong tho gu yo ma wa ke ni ta nga zo lu ho de ba he song ye ka la tene sibi driba the ko ambogo nganga mewacha tene malam chi de malami ayo marwa ta ko malam ke banga tene ni thau te yang tene ta ko ni thau chi sambe ka la tene ko semji ke ta ko ne thama te gara de ri yo ta semji rang yo za de ba yo mare ka sa ti dissolution ka la ko di nyong mo ba ti thau zom de nga ro do thau zom ko de sem sam ma sa nya de ta nga zo no du shu wi na o se ma thu la wu na re ka na o se ngo sun jo la wu na 얘네다 틴디지 개시 디가는 뭐 초비나 사디해 버렸어.
And so this is what we refer to as recognizing the nature of the mind. It is when the nature of the mind is clear luminosity. And when we recognize luminosity, the luminous nature of the mind, and we have recognized the nature of the mind, and we have that now. We have this clear luminous nature of the mind now, but we don't see it. Somebody with high realization can see it, but we can't see it because, as we mentioned yesterday, it is because we are obscured by three kinds of obscurations: the obscurations of the waking state, the obscurations of the dream state, and the obscurations of the deep sleep state. And because we are always obscured by one of or the other obscuration, we can never see the luminous nature of our mind. But now here at the time of death, when the body disintegrates, then we are free from the obscuration of the waking state, because the five sense doors have already shut down. So that does not exist anymore. And then we're also not dreaming, so we don't have the dream obscurations. And we are also just awakening from like deep sleep, from this blackness. And the mind is in a completely pure, pristine state at that moment. There's nothing there. It's just the mind. All concepts of the three poisons have already ceased, and all there is just the purest nature of the mind. And so that is what we call this recognition, the recognition of this luminous nature, the meeting of the mother and the child luminosity. So if one recognizes that, then one attains enlightenment.
Here's the question. Maybe Eno wants to read it. It says, in Lama Chopa, there is a verse 112 where it mentions the forceful means of enlightenment, the Guru's transference of mind. How can the Guru help us to achieve Phowa? Is this different from doing Phowa on our own?
Lama Chopa no the Sintapso Sangi Betapshi Yoris Karareset Lama Phowa, Lama Sengi Phowa. Dini Phowa Tebiela, Dini Lama Ganso Kandes Roba Gyap Toguri, Tanati Phowa, Naranso Phowa Jumea Tang Lama Naranso de la Roba Gyala, de la Kiba Yorve.
Re ta te tsek de tendency te tang go chu ma ti yin na yang re ta tan da de khar sang ga chu te song ro wa di pho wan de yang ta jik pa ri khar se na zen tap su ro dik pho chi zen tap su sang je be ta la do te ni sang ji ge res te ni ta te ga na yi ta tan da de yang te ni lama la ten go ro wa pho jang ya de yin ji mi ni lama ji go gu yo res te ni ta tan da lama cho be ki na da thon da de go jik pa cha de yo sa res.
So it seems to be the same as the poem. Not 100% sure about the question, but so in the Phowa, it also mentions the forceful way to attain enlightenment, and also for that, of course, we need to rely on a lama, and then that is probably the same as in the Lama Chopa.
Yeah. Okay.
So, once during sleep, I experience a state of like without time or space, where I was just kind of resting, I think, with my body, and I was aware of that. And that's still not where we want to go. We want to let go of that, right? We want to, that, of course, that's not enlightenment.
Okay, beginning. So what do you said first? Sleeping?
Yeah.
During the sleeping?
Yeah. Where there's like no time, or no space. I was just aware I was with my body, sleeping in that moment. So where do we want to go from there?
Right. Okay, you during the sleeping, so you, sort of like you experience no time?
Yeah.
So what means no time?
Well, things were just very still. I knew I was sleeping, and then I just kind of wake up. I knew also know there was a lot of time that passed.
Or you not realize that how much you take time?
Yeah.
How many hours you sleeping?
I said, yeah.
Okay.
But he was dreaming, but he was awake dreaming, and he knew he was sleeping. He was like awake during his dream, and he knew he was dreaming, but he didn't know what to do then when he knew he was dreaming. So then he just woke up. Like he saw himself when he was asleep in a dream. He was aware, right?
I knew I was.
Right, so this, yeah, so I don't know also exactly what means the time, but Terwa, ta jitang nga so di jitang dream yoga no practice chigi yore, ta tindu jitang nga so kurban de la, ta zo che hyong nga so chingya ki jumsen de karsena, kurban di ki na la, tene, jik rangi top deba yinba, lenba yinba, 다 든리 장사진이 가서 챙도그로와 땅 가서 직 노바로와 차방 고원도 직 차바 유요나 텔레코베 직 노바다 되네 직 티킨 노바다 무니 수임바 직 고요와 되네 야직 방와시도 야다 현바지 다 두가임바 나 고메바 다 든리게게 가서 직된디 기나나 강행용야다 챙도야게 고짜에게 에다 루트데 가르쳐서나 자동이 차디요래 티인도 다티 차단데 갈래 매와 소버치비 탑들라 다 마모여와 이나야다 단단가서 배나 스피시픽 나로 추로 그나서 못함이나 되네 다 믹스게 된다디 줄루구미야노와 줄루 대가 나이가 좀 말람구미야요래 다 말람구미야서 줄루도이나 다 가서 직텐디길라 칸디지 제거요나와 직 ngato ji dembare sam gu yuna da ngoni yakbo reality sam no tambina dinala ko ngoni juma do re da juma ote ta to bina da ngato khurwa chadang ki chengdo marwa ta da nyamdo tene ngato malam na yire da ji malam do ina malam ne kala ya tene ji be henang do chombina ni se son na malam re sam na tene ko ye do do ti ta pe na cha khan ji ten di kina la ya 제가 저 해당라고 라미나 지밀람 나이지 또 탑이나 되네 랭도 거래 대인도 다 단다 코란 개전도 때 대인 사례 삼고도 있나 제당 가서 지밀람 그나라 니츠 가리 중고요나 알아와 그 야보 니츠 중고나래 누보 니츠 중고요나래 다저 개체효대 지금 밀람 그나라 뭐 생야에 뭐다 밀람리 하삼바로지 밀람이 임발라 밀람들라 밀람 그 뭐로지 히비나 다도 약쇼레스 이나 다직 말람가 까블고 말람 라멘다 미즈게데 직다 직 냠용도 원단다면다 용스기로와 이나 다도다 고용그로와 이나야 개체효데다 단다디 직 말람텔라 조 말람 신함 미진세야텔라 직 오 말람 미비 까블라 말람 레삼바 다 참랭가서 말람 나나 현황도 오나 말람 레삼바 틴디 제가 개천보리 대가 나기 그냥 가서 제가 니 될라 되네 다지 제당으로 집이나 가서 니 개베 기초 많이 봐다 매개베 초 많이 봐 지금 룽마 땡도 레도 랍고요 이나야 다 강한다리야 말람데 대야한테 말람들이야 개와 줄이야 요리라 말람들이야 미게 말람말이다 니도 이나 ni debe kala ni tala ya megeba chaga yori ni tala ya geba chaga yori lap kdo ten di ta chik nga zo ni makho bi ngola gebe ki sem Changchub sem tega na yi nga zo karong ge jor tene je don ni kho bi na den sen ni kho debe kap sama la den geba chaga res ya chik ni makho ngola den chik ta do hedan den sem khondro ta tene simte tene la di bi na den ko ni khasi kho bi thusu chusu ta 두든 가시 코고요나야 디테일했더니 미게 바차 그레스 텐데 송구도와 와타테 인다디
So there are practices like dream yoga and so on, but now what we need to understand is that the main root cause of why we are bound to samsara It is our belief that things do inherently exist. We believe in the true existence of things. And there are various objects of attachment and aversion, and we think that they are real too. So if there's an object of attachment, then we really want that, and we think it's a real thing to have. And if you have an aversion against something, then we don't want that, and we think it's a real thing that's bad. So attachment and aversion are really at the root of our bondage to samsara and all of our difficulties here. And there are many different methods, of course, to eliminate these thoughts, concepts of attachment and aversion. But now, especially in the practice of the 6 yogas of Naropa, there's practices like the illusory body and dream yoga. And what we practice here is that this thought of something is real in this world, and that is recognized as an illusion. So we think that if you really think about how things really are, they are like illusions. And so if you realize that, then you no longer have the root of being bound to samsara. So you eliminate attachment and aversion in this way. And also in the dream yoga, for example, when you have a nightmare and then you wake up, then it disappears. You understand it's illusory. And during the daytime, if you recognize things like negative emotions like anger and so on as dreamlike by nature, then that is actually sufficient. That is what we need to do. And then regarding the dream itself, we can have all kinds of different dreams. We can have positive dreams and negative dreams, but it doesn't really matter. We can have all kinds of experiences and different kinds of dreams. But the most important point in the dream yoga is to recognize that you are actually dreaming, no matter what kind of dream it is, but that you recognize this is just a dream. So that's really the point of the dream yoga practice. And then regarding sleep itself, it is said generally that it is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. It is like a neutral state. But also sleep can actually become virtuous or non-virtuous. And that depends on your state of mind before you go to sleep. So before you go to sleep, if your mind is in a virtuous state, if you cultivate bodhicitta, if you do some prayers and so on, some recitations, and fall asleep in that way, it is said that the entire duration of your sleep becomes virtuous. And on the other hand, if before you go to sleep, you are afflicted, there's jealousy, there's anger, there's competitiveness, there's worries in your mind and so on, then it is that this entire time that you are asleep is non-virtuous.
So maybe we here to break. So they come back 4 o'clock.